Welcome to Mindful Notions. Welcome back to Mindful Notions, where we help young people do more with less. This is our first midnight live stream here on the East Coast, so we're breaking new ground. And speaking of breaking new ground, we are actually nominated for our first award as a podcast. So it only took 4 years, but Mindful Notions by Sam H. Lee is nominated for Beyond the Feed at the Cheerful Earful Golden Globe. Shout out to Giles and the whole team there. They run on Notion. They are a podcast festival that completely runs on Notion. So if you don't know what Notion is yet, you clearly have not listened to an episode here. So go check it out, notion.so. And it's pretty cool. I think that the award ceremony will be in London, which is where we did the Cheerful Earful podcast back in October. I'll be going in early May. And between now and May 4th, you can vote. So all you need to do is click the link in the description. Search up Mindful Notions by Sam H. Lee. It'll give you a link, and then you can fill in your name and email. We think you can use different emails, so if you want to vote a few times with different emails, shouldn't really matter. Shouldn't be a problem. So if you feel inclined to have multiple emails, feel free to do so. But I think now is also a good time because the YouTube channel that I run is about to hit 100K views. We're at like 99,750, which is insane. And this video, it's just to cross that, but we had to make something about it. So we're going to talk about the history of my podcasting so far. And instead of me talking to myself, probably when I have done it at midnight, I'm turning it over to Dania Tahir, who we have with us. And Dania is a long time esteemed podcast guest, 2-3 times at this point, I want to say. Like we did one when this podcast was called College Conscience and we were both in college. We did one about ChatGPT. Did another one that I don't think made it to air, but that's on me, not you. You were great. It was more me. And now we're back. So Dania, do you want to introduce yourself however you would like? And then
Yeah.
I'm passing the reins more to you to ask questions to me, whatever you see fit.
Yeah, hell yeah. Um, Let me just say that if you were gonna talk to yourself just for an hour on a live stream, I would tune in. So
Thanks.
everyone do
Thanks,
that.
babe.
Yeah, so I'm Danya. I've been Sam's friend since we were like 15. So,
Babies, literal
really
babies.
like since we were babies. Sam walked up to me at a speech and debate tournament and started talking to me. And I'm like, who the fuck is this? And then we became friends. So that's awesome.
Pretty
Um,
much. Yeah.
let's see, I do influencer marketing and I'm an improviser. So I would say those two
Yes.
things define me.
If you're an SF and you want to catch an improv show, Dania is the person to talk to. So please do that if you're an
Yeah.
SF.
I
Yes.
will always pub myself in my shows.
You have to. You have
Yes.
to.
But this is not about me, guys. This is about Sam. So, yeah. So Sam, so can you give me in a nutshell kind of you do a lot of creative things. Can you give
Yeah.
me a little overview of you have a YouTube channel, you have 2 podcasts. Can you just give me a brief like nugget?
Yes. So I would say currently my content revolves around those two podcasts. So this podcast, Mindful Notions, focuses more on the intersection of young people and anything that they're going through. So whether that's work, personal, something that's not work or personal, that's what this show has been since college. The show used to be called College Conscience. We did an episode where we were talking about the expectations of growing up in particular households and how that translated over. I did episodes with friends on how to find creativity in college, how to navigate internships, and that just evolved into post grad and now just life. So that's one podcast, and that spins out YouTube content, spins out Instagram content sometimes, of course, on Substack and the podcast platforms. And then the other podcast is called Cities Decoded. And that comes out of the work I do with this great organization called the AI Collective. It's the biggest AI nonprofit in the world, chapters all around the world. And when I was in DC, I not only did a podcast where I was talking to influential AI people in DC, so anyone from startups to policy to big tech, but also hosting what I thought were pretty cool events, usually Notion themed, but those were really fun to actually see the community in person. I feel like when I was doing Mindful Notions podcasts, it's mostly just this, which is great, but I also have great times with friends outside of the podcast. And it was more about when I had friends who I wanted on the podcast, that was the 1 to 2. But I think the 1 to 2 for City Dakota was like meeting people in person for the first time sometimes, thinking they were really cool and doing cool things, and then coming onto the podcast and that being the crux of the relationship. So it's been great because I was a full-time podcast producer in a previous life, and I learned a lot of editing as well, like the technical sides of everything. And it was just a great time in DC to be producing podcasts, hosting those, and really lucky that in New York, despite everything going on outside of content, still here doing it now, evidently. So yeah, it really centers around the two podcasts and everything else flows from there.
Yeah. And so the one that won the award, mine, or hasn't won it yet, but I just
I
manifested that.
like the enthusiasm. I like the
Yeah,
manifest,
the one
the
that's won, the
manifestation.
one that has already won because it's gonna win.
Yeah.
Mindful Notions. Can you talk a little bit about why? So you kind of touched on it, but kind of like why you started it, how you kept it going. Like I feel like these creative projects can be really hard to keep pushing when you're kind of running the ship, you know? And can you just talk about how it started and why it's still going?
Yeah, I think you really can't beat consistency with content. I mean, the reason why I wanted you to do this specifically, not just that you know me really well, but I think you have also really understood what it takes to get to where you are with your creative pursuits. I mean, with improv, I mean, booking places, like practicing, getting people to align on stuff. Like it, above all, takes consistency. And I think that's the biggest underrated thing. Of course, by saying underrated, I sound like every growth hacker out there. Like this is the underrated thing to listen to. But I can live and die by that. The reason why the YouTube channel is about to hit 100,000 views is not because we had a viral video ever. I think like our biggest video long form was like 500 views, and then our biggest short was like 2,000. I say
Mhm.
we, but I mean me. But you know, I tend to say we as in everyone who has showed up for me on the channel. But the reason why we're about to hit 100K is not because of a single viral video. It's because of the consistency over day to day, month to month, year to year. So I think it started back in early 2021 where my parents actually were the ones who encouraged me to go forth with the YouTube channel. And that was surprising because that was not what I was expecting to hear from my parents. And I remember, I don't know if you remember, but I vlogged this one speech and debate tournament in early 2019 at the Arizona State University, and I sent it to you and a couple of friends. I was like, here it is. And like unprompted too. And I think you were one of the few encouraging ones. I feel like others are like, great thumbs up, but you were like, this is sick. Like, and I remember that could have been the end of it. It could have been like these unlisted videos because so many people, I think both of us know, they're like, oh yeah, like I used to do YouTube for a bit, or even like TikTok was
Mhm.
probably a more relevant example, but they're like, it's private or
Yeah.
it's just for me. And I respect that, but I think the reason why we are here today, being able to talk about this with the podcast getting an award or again manifesting it, like already getting an award or getting to these like milestone figures of views is because it was in public. Like
Yeah.
there's a world where I just did it in private, but it's like consistently and in public. And I think something that again both of us have probably realized is that once people realize that's your thing, they don't really care. Like I think especially with Instagram, there's some hesitation that I hear from people of like, I do have this passion for like improv or cooking or something, but like those are my friends. Like my friends are there, and like I don't want to annoy them. But
Yeah.
like once
Yeah.
they get it's your thing, like it kind of life goes on, and you're able to build up your brand to what you actually who you actually wanted to see, which is not your friends or family. It's actually like the opposite. It's people who
Yeah.
don't know you and can give you something. So
Yeah.
that's kind of how I would say it kept going. Just the consistency.
Yeah, and the real friends wouldn't care, you know? Like, fake
Exactly.
ones can unfollow you. If you don't wanna see
Exactly.
me all the time, unfollow me, like, clearly, you know? But the real ones will
Yeah.
stay, and yeah, I resonate a lot with the consistency and the fact that, like, yeah, it's not about a viral moment 'cause it's not always pretty, you know? It's not always like a
No.
moment of fame, like, it's like you have to do shit that no one sees, and then, like, you get, like, 2 people in the audience or you get a few views and you just have to keep going because you like the form,
Yeah.
and that's my segue into my next question,
Love
smooth,
that.
which is
So smooth.
why podcasting? Because I feel like it is such a unique art form, and I just want to know what drew you to it as opposed to other things.
I would say it's still ridiculously easy to start a podcast. Like as a podcast, I feel like there's too many podcasts in the world. You really just need to record yourself and then upload it to Substack, Beehive, YouTube. It doesn't really matter at this point. But that's the honest answer why I started back in 2022 because you just uploaded to Anchor FM. It got acquired by
Mhm.
Spotify, and then you had a podcast like on Spotify and Apple
Yeah.
Podcasts. And I was like, this feels too easy. Still feels too easy, but I would say probably like the deeper reason was because I felt like I learned new things about my friends during the podcast episodes that did not come up in sometimes these like years long friendships, including ours. I feel like we really got into what it means to be like certain types of Asian Americans, and we
Yeah.
obviously were a lot closer to speech and debate back then. But I think that I'm sure we had talked about that either in like your car, my car, like somewhere in Ohio, anywhere in
Yeah.
the state of Ohio. But but it came up in such a like profound way to me. Like it didn't have to be profound to anyone else, but I think that I realized first feeling that sense of accomplishment of being able to get to know a friend deeper. And then I would say, secondly, realizing that if I paired this feeling of accomplishment with the consistency that
Mhm.
even at the time back in 2022, I felt like I was doing a bit better than the people around me on average. I was like, maybe there's something here. And I think that showed not just to what we already talked about, but the fact that my first full time job was as a podcast producer. I mean, not that it was like the most impossible job to get, but I think it didn't hurt that I just had podcasting as a hobby and
Yeah.
then being
Yeah.
able to just hone in even more on that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so when you oh yeah, I forgot because you right when you graduated, you started working at as a producer.
Yeah.
Wow. Hell yeah. Yeah, was it so when you took the job and that became your full-time job, did you experience any, like, a love-hate relationship with the forum? Like, did it start feeling too much like work? Um, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like it was definitely love hate, but that's expected too. And I think I've been lucky where with that job and now at my current job, it started as a passion and hobby, but I think that's why you have some people who do like, especially in New York, like finance during the day, DJ at night, and they would never do DJ during the day. Like some people need to keep it
Yeah.
separate, but I'm the opposite where like my
Mm,
passion kind of needs to be my career at this point,
yeah.
and it's not even and sometimes it doesn't feel like a choice. It's like I feel like the opportunities I've been lucky to get have been my passions, but that's why I feel like it's so important to have a passion that remains the passion. Like I think
Yeah.
when I was podcast producing, yes, at a point it did feel like just work and all the non-sexy things with content, like you edit a video and then you didn't save it and like you have to
Yeah.
restart
Yeah.
or your computer's crashing and stuff like that, or the audio got messed up and it's like unusable pretty much.
Yeah.
And I think the way I was able to balance that was doing all of like the Notion stuff I was doing on the side of hosting events, making templates, and making it make sense for me just in a creative way. And that's kind of switched out where like Notion is
Yeah.
my main thing
That
and
that's
podcasting, like this is so fun for me. And I know I could do this at a much higher level. Like
yeah.
I could send you a mic, I could put us up at Riverside, but like that's not the point right now. And this is perfectly fine. So it's about making the hobby like literally a hobby when it's not the job.
Yeah, and I mean, is it hard to keep the consistency when, like, you do it when you have a full-time job, when you have a social like, when you're doing all these things, how do you find the thing inside of you that's like, "I still want to keep this podcast going," because it can be so easy to drop that creative work, so
Yeah, I think it needs to feel like something I will eventually get back to more
yeah.
seriously. Otherwise, like you're right. There's so many things, especially in a city like New York or SF, and I love SF, as you know. Like there's just so many things to do, and I think for me, it's balancing. Like first, I do see myself at some point in the future being able to do this more seriously again. But then secondly, all I can do is the next best thing. Like this situation was put together in the past 48 hours where I was just like, I need to have something
Yeah.
out by Friday. And you were generous enough to be like, yeah, let's do it. So I think it also relies on good friends. That's why I do the podcast now, not really alone. I do it with Hillary, Austin, and Megan. We talk about what we're building, and very little prep goes into that. Allegedly, maybe I should like caveat that. Like, it's a lot of work to make it look effortless, like a lot of effort, but it's effortless. But it's really a lot of effort, guys. But I think also it gets into the accountability. Like I probably wouldn't have found the motivation unless I'm like, okay, Dania's going to be here and I need to show up for Dania at the very least. But I'm happy to be here, to be clear.
Wow. Guys, let it be known that Sam said I'm a good friend. So,
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much that's what we
yeah.
should take away
So
from this.
might as well give me the good friend award, right? Because yeah.
I'll,
Um,
I'll let the team know. I'll feel like we have a good friend, good supporter. One
yeah.
person.
Take me. Wait, where is it again? Where is it in England?
London. It's London. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
in London.
Um,
Yeah.
you want to
Yeah.
talk a little bit about that award? And like what it exactly is and when you went there the first time?
Yeah, for sure. The award is called Beyond the Feed, and I'm really happy that we were nominated for this one because it's about a podcast that becomes larger than just the audio and video, and you're really able to build a community around it. I do community currently for a living, so it feels very validating to get that. But I think that I'm really excited just to be in the conversation of podcasts that are bigger than themselves. Not that it's bad at all to have a successful podcast, but I think whatever I'm working towards right now, it does feel larger than just this, right? Like it's conversations where people walk away feeling a mix of like happy, entertained, informed, all the above. And that's how I felt when I did the podcast in London last October. It was it was an audience of one. It was my friend's boyfriend. But that's like never mattered to me. Like I think
Yeah.
that again shows that I'm really here for the love of the game, and I think that's what's going to
Oh yeah.
carry it. And I just remember feeling so like it was so fun for us to do that. And first time in London, I did not spend that much time in it. I think I was there like Friday to Sunday because of just logistics and all that. I'm going to spend a bit more time this time. I'm the worst thing is Wednesday. I'm going to work a bit out of like the offices there, but then the weekend I will enjoy it and do all the touristy stuff. So I think I'm just going back a bit more mature. It's only been 6 months, but I was in a very different state of life. I was still moving and everything back then to New York. And I'm determined to make some of these work trips that I'm going on more and more a bit more fun as well because um I think I don't know. I think the podcast has afforded me to go to London twice. Like that's pretty insane. And if I don't spend time there that's not just podcast related, I have a feeling I'll regret it. So that's what I'm focused on. Like not regretting things that are are in my control to an extent. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Hell yeah. Wow. 6 months ago. I guess I was a different person then too. Yeah. I guess that is a time frame.
A
I
lot
never
can
think of my
change.
life.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think of my life in terms of 6 months, but when I guess it is true how much of a difference it can make. And also I resonate a lot with the audience of one thing because I've done my fair share of shows where it's like one person and you really
Mhm.
have to know what you're doing.
Yeah.
So okay, so one thing I had a question on also, which makes sense because I'm supposed to be asking you questions, is you switched the name of the podcast from College Conscious to Mindful Notions, and
Yeah.
I want to know why the fuck you did that. Like, what was going on? Was it because you graduated? I guess you can just talk a little bit about how it's changed and like why you made that switch and in general how the content is changing and if you think it's going to change in the future.
Yeah, definitely graduating made me think twice about having a college podcast. I I think I made the switch shortly after I graduated because I that's when I created the Substack, and that was called Mindful Morsels, now Mindful Notions. I mean, it's pretty much the same thing, but it Mindful Notions made sense because I was pushing out a lot of Notion content. I think I've put less weight on name changes because at the end of the day, the majority of people who listen or watch or support should support because it's me. Like it doesn't really matter if it's Mindful Notions or Cities Decoded or whatever else. Like I think something that I see, let's say, early or newer content creators get caught up on, oh, my computer. Are you still, am I still here? Okay, great. My
Yeah.
computer, I think, went to sleep. Okay, my computer feels like it's the middle of the night. So I think that I've cared less about name changes. Like, of course, it's important to have a name that makes sense, but I think at the end of the day, people should be tuning in or supporting because it's you and you're saying something
Yeah.
valuable. Like, I think about big Substackers like Jasmine Sun or like Emily
Mhm.
Sundberg. I don't think about the names of their brands. Like, I follow them because they are who they are. Or you could even extend it to like Joe Rogan or Alex Cooper. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a little different, but like the Rogan experience, like the Rogan show. But it's a similar thing where I think I've cared less about the names. So to answer, like, yeah, I changed it because I cared more back then. I was like, this is like the start of Mindful Notions. And it
Yeah.
was, but in the future, yeah, I could probably change it again, but I shouldn't expect that to either really positively or negatively affect my audience because
Mhm.
they should be here for me. Yeah.
Yeah. And so would you say the content has stayed the same?
I think it's gotten a lot better just because I've been growing. I think in terms of maybe the material, yeah, like you could proportionally compare it from how we would talk in college versus now versus when we're in our late 20s, 30s,
Mhm.
etc. But I've just gotten more comfortable, I think, with questions and podcasting in general, even to the point where I'm happy to
Yeah.
like have someone ask me questions. I remember in the very early days when I did some of those episodes in person, at the end, my friend would be like, "Oh, maybe next time, like I interview you," and I was like, "That's a good idea," but maybe we just let me like
Yeah.
dictate here, and that goes into the part of me that is quite type A and can be controlling. But the even like letting you do this, I know like again, I really appreciate you showing up for me this way, but I probably wouldn't want a friend to do this even a year ago. So the
Yeah.
fact that I'm like more comfortable and I trust that there are certain people in my life that can ask me questions, it might not seem like a big deal to someone who doesn't know me, but to someone who does know me knows like how particular I can be with content. It means a lot, I think, for both for people to show up for me and then also for me to like let people reverse roles. It's a big shift, I would say, for the
Mhm.
content. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. The predator becomes the prey.
Predator becomes the prey, student becomes the teacher, all the
Teacher. So many metaphors. Wow. Well, yeah. I'm so glad you trusted me to ask you things.
yeah,
I
of
guess I could
course.
really ask you like your deepest, darkest secret now and just change the whole vibe. But I won't because I'm awesome.
Thanks.
Um,
Thanks.
what I will ask is, so you talked about cities decoded and mindful notions. Can you clarify for me like the timeline about when you started cities decoded and in tandem with mindful notions, and then how you were kind of able to clearly separate those two in your head and for other people?
Yeah, that's a work in progress for sure. I think for most people, I'm like, just one's AI, one's young people. That's how you should think about it. But Cities Decoded completely started with the AI Collective. I was getting more involved early last year, and I was actually thinking of ending Cities Decoded when I moved to New York. I'm in like a situationship. I feel like with the AI Collective, like it's mostly volunteer. That's the only situationship I will tolerate in my life right now. But it's like volunteer based. It's very much like pay as you go type of situation. It's a great organization, don't get me wrong, but it's volunteer at the end of the day. Like it
Yeah,
can't be our
yeah,
main thing unless you're getting paid or you just are able to have that situation.
yeah,
So I think I was very happy to just like kind of let the podcast die down, but the numbers kept growing, not crazily, but there was still interest in what we were doing. That's why this year I'm so happy to have had like the creator of the Daily Tea who puts out these great AI news pieces or like curates these great AI news pieces every weekday and sends it out to
yeah,
subscribers. I've had Aleph who does a lot of great community AI work in DC, write pieces. I've had John who does so many events in
yeah,
New York or goes to so many, like also contribute, and they're all gonna help support this live event we're doing in a few weeks, which I'm really excited about. So I think I view Cities Decoded as if you have a strong opinion on AI and you're
mhm,
doing something about it in a city, I want to hear a story, preferably in tandem with other people. I am lucky to have had people reach out, but I'm not super interested in solo stories. Like I want
I
people to be in conversation with each other. And then with Mindful Notions and just everything I do with the personal content, no matter how hard I try to grow it, it just doesn't have it. It's like so content pure where I like, believe me, I've tried. I know we just talked about not having morality, but it's not like I didn't try to make a really cool
Yeah,
video like that. It's more just it, at the end of the day, Mindful Notions, and I'm really appreciative for it. It's so content pure. That's like the best way I can put it. There's no
what do you mean by
ulterior
content?
motive. I feel like I don't care about following a specific strategy or ever getting like, I mean, I might regret saying this, like ever getting sponsorships or things that would just dictate it.
Yeah,
And that's such a privilege because at some point art meets business, right? Like at some point you need sponsorships and ads if you're ever going to make something viable. And hate it or love it, but that's just the reality, at least in the
yeah,
States. And again, it's not for a lack of trying, but I think Mindful Notions is just resistant to that as a concept. I've created something, and me and
yeah,
my friends have created something where literally, like, Mindful Notions is probably going to outlive anything else that I do, I think. And as I told you, I hope one day we're doing this like in the studio at my place. But I think that's the biggest distinction to me and why, despite some efforts of like, let's say cross pollination or combining, like I don't see a world where the two are one because
yeah,
one actually has, I would argue, growth potential and has more like buy-in from
yeah,
serious people. And not that me and you aren't in certain ways, but this is us as being us. And
yeah,
I think that's something that is so like valuable
yeah,
long term. And I'm very into long term bets these days.
yeah.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Wow, yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's so I mean, since I work in influencer marketing, like, I'm talking to a lot of creators that,
Yeah.
they need the sponsorships, they need the money, and that art meets the business, and at some point it gets messy and it changes the value of the content, and I think there's been a lot of cases in, like, pop culture where fans have noticed changes in their favorite artists and favorite creators' content because that person took on a sponsorship, so I
Totally.
think it's I also think it's interesting that that you say that Cities Decoded has that potential for growth and that you really don't care if Mindful Notions does because it's so, like, content pure. I think that's a really beautiful thing because I feel like most people assume that artists want their everything to be seen, and so it's cool to see
Yeah.
that I think it means you really love what you do. And I think,
Hopefully.
another thing I was wondering, since you are an expert podcaster, and this is my first time ever interviewing someone on a podcast, is
Wow, it's your first time? Oh, I'm so happy. I'm so happy. I got that. I
I
got that
know,
privilege.
I've never done it before, so, um, I wanna know what some of your favorite podcasts are, and then also what you think makes a good one, and maybe even what makes a bad one. So
Yeah. Yeah. I would say I'm actually pretty low on the podcast right now. I feel like after a year and a half, I'm just like always listening to ones. I'm taking a bit of a breather, but I would say generally some of my favorite podcasts come out of the Free Press. Is this media company based in New York and controversial, I think, for all the right reasons. It's provocative, but I
Mhm.
think some of their hosts, like Barry Weiss, who is still the head of the Free Press, but is also head of CBS News now. She did a great podcast uh, with people like Sam Altman, Peter Thiel,
Mhm.
not just tech people, those are just like the names that are in my head. But I think also like the Axios co founders were great. She did authors who
Mhm.
were really fascinating. And I think that type of questioning and personality that Barry has
Mhm.
models onto what I think is a good podcast. Like, as I was texting you, I texted you some questions before this. Not that allegedly you also just had these thoughts come up in your head organically. But as I texted you, I was like, but above all, the conversation needs to be worth listening to. Like, I can
Mhm.
tell you all these things and you can have all these ideas, but at the end of the day, that's how I judge when I do podcasts as well. Like, did I make a point? Like, did I
Yeah,
add something to the conversation? And increasingly, sometimes that has been just like me and my friends giving our updates that only we could give. Like, only
yeah,
Hillary is building her startup, or Megan, or Austin doing his thing. Like, there's nobody else that can replicate that. So even if it's, let's say, like early stages, or there's not that much to say, or we're only getting out to like 100 people, or sometimes more based on how the shorts do, like the fact that we're adding something new is something that I think I want to see more of. It goes back to what I think. I said earlier, and what makes a bad podcast is like the oversaturation. Like we don't need another podcast on X unless you have a specific point of view. And I think especially we don't need more one-on-one podcasts on specific topics. Like I think the exceptional ones do break through. Like Dwarkesh Patel does a great job with his AI interviews. He just had Jensen Huang and he's had Dario and like a bunch of very prolific AI figures, but that's because he does it really, really well. And I'm sure there's like 10 to many more than 10 people that are trying to do a very similar thing. And I
Yeah.
probably also was one of those people at some point, but I think I've learned that you do need to be different. And that's where it doesn't matter how good AI gets. Like humans care about that. Humans want to be entertained. They want to hear something new. They want to care about something. And I think that loops back around to how I go into podcasting now, where again, like I think the questions come second, the tech comes second, the publishing strategy sometimes comes last for me. I mean, I just put up a LinkedIn post this I felt like it was right today.
Yeah.
And above all, it's like if somebody was listening to this for the first time, especially if they aren't a friend or family member who's like already inclined to support me, which I
Yeah.
appreciate, but that's not the audience to grow or to really reach, like, would they feel like that was worth it? And that's how we judge podcasts as well.
Hmm. And would you say that what makes it worth it is a unique takeaway, or is it an entertaining way of conversing, or is it both?
I think it's definitely
Wait,
subjective.
also, I
I
have
think
to
from
blow my nose. Can I do that?
you need to blow your nose.
Can I blow my nose?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Do this is
I don't know if that's
do
weird.
it. No, no, no. Do what you need to do.
Is everyone
This
gonna
is an maybe a little bit, but they will appreciate the authenticity. I can speak
Good.
for them on their behalf. And yeah, no, do what you need to do. We want you to feel the most comfortable you've ever felt on the podcast. I I think it's subjective, but for me, it very much needs to be I learned something. For others, like my sister, who's one of the smartest people I know, she listens to quite different types of podcasts like The
Mhm.
Bachelor After Show or things like that, which are a lot more entertaining. I'm doing my best to talk about it in like a non-disparaging way because of course, like I said, very smart people listen to that. So
Yeah.
clearly it's for a lot of different people. But I think and some people get their podcasts fill through that. Some
Mhm.
people don't listen to podcasts in certain seasons and other seasons they do. I would count myself among that. So I think for me, it's very much like I want to learn something I didn't know in a way where I'm not bored, which is
Yeah,
also
yeah,
very subjective. Like
yeah.
there are some great podcasts out there that I've given an episode and maybe it was the wrong episode, maybe I was in the wrong mood, but that's all it takes. And like that's what I think everyone in content understands. Like you have to keep honing in your message and make it clear and crisper every time because somebody might be convinced the first time, a lot more likely they'll be convinced the 10th time if they're like really convinced that you gave a good message or content piece.
Yeah. Yeah, hell yeah. Um, do you think so I guess on like the subjectivity angle, would you how do you feel about feedback? Like, I guess something I struggle with sometimes is because improv is so subjective that it's taking feedback and learning and growing from it can be a complicated territory. So I wonder if you feel similarly with
Yeah.
podcasting, especially when it is your baby. Like if someone, I don't know if someone ever has, but if you were to receive feedback, do you want feedback? Like how do you yeah, I guess would you use it to grow? Like yeah, I don't know how that works in this realm. So
Yeah, I think there's something we say at the company that I do really resonate with where feedback is a gift. I always view it that way. I think, but just like with gifts, you can still choose whether you like it or not, and you can still choose whether to use it or not. So I think generally I want the podcast to be better. And I think we've established here like that means something different for the two podcasts. Like
yeah.
I just want it to
Yeah.
be better in the way that makes sense for those podcasts. And
Mhm.
that usually relies on just me being better about asking questions, doing research, like especially with multiple guests, making sure that there's good flow of conversation. I would say that I would say that there's a few people who I would go to for specific types of feedback that I would
Okay.
really value their opinion. it's kind of like a relationship where, again, there's only like a few people where I really want their input, but those
Yeah,
people, like, I really want their input. And until I'm like seriously dating that person, I would take it almost as seriously as my own. I
yeah,
feel like with content, it's that type of mindset where I want to hear what people say generally, but there's a few people where I'm like, think deeply about what you're gonna say because I will take it very seriously. And
yeah,
I think I choose those people intentionally because that's a lot of pressure. That's a lot of pressure for some people.
yeah,
And I have been on the receiving end sometimes where it's clear that some people like really want to get better at maybe something they're working at in Notion, for example,
yeah,
or with content as well. And I take that seriously too. So maybe it's just a mutual thing where I think when you meet, especially creatives, sometimes they're like the most ambitious people you'll ever meet
hmm,
in a slightly scary way
yeah,
sometimes, but it's kind of kindred spirits where I think when you meet those people, you know that they will, if they have the time and they care about you, they will like really help you grow way faster than if you just polled 50 people or 100
yeah,
people. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
yeah. I think I agree, and I think I agree on the. I think there are. I was talking to my friend who fucking wrote a book. I don't even. It's crazy,
Oh,
but she was telling me about how
awesome.
she has like two people who she will send the whole manuscript to and like be like, give me good and bad feedback. And then there's some
Yeah.
of her friends who are she's just as close with those other friends, but she knows that they're not gonna tell her straight up, and that's so fair. And I think it's important to have a mix of those people in your life. And yeah, and I think it's especially when you're with other creatives, it's like a bunch of flames together too, and it's like a lot of
Yeah.
heat. And I think it's just you have to find a balance of friendship and feedback and the loop. And I guess it's also different depending on, like with you and me, like if I'm doing improv and you're in podcast, like that's different versus like doing it
Yeah.
by like two podcasts. It's just a different vibe. So yeah.
Yeah. Agreed. And it's also like showing people that you've incorporated their feedback. Like
Yeah.
if you're going to the length of asking them seriously for feedback, imagine how they feel if they don't feel like you've taken it
If you've
seriously. You know
taken
what
it.
I mean? Like I think people sometimes drop the ball sometimes on that too, and I try to get better at it. But I think it's also showing someone your appreciation by like incorporating that feedback, either by being like, that was a great note, I'm including that, or like, hey, really appreciate it, but just not gonna
Yeah.
include it right now.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. Um, I also wanted to ask if and so can you remind me when you started Mindful Notions again?
Fall 2022.
Fall
Yeah.
2022. If
Yeah.
you were to go back, I don't know why I'm making this so complicated. The question I basically have is just if you have any advice for people who want to start a podcast or do what you're doing. And I guess in tandem with that, if you were to go back to 2022 Sam and give him any advice or tell him to do something different, would you? Or what would you say?
Yeah, for sure. I would say anyone who wants to start, besides just getting started, which I think is still the best advice out there, I think don't do it alone. There's like too many solo podcasters these days, and it's not that you can't be successful, but I think especially what I'm seeing at Notion, where we're really emphasizing like the collaborative nature of working with AI and how humans can work together as well. It's something that I think is an important message that can just be applicable to general content as well. I think, especially because content creation can be so personality driven at times, where you
Yeah.
can latch on to specific people. I think the more you can show that you are among peers and people are working together,
Mhm.
the better it is for, again, there's like long-term success. Anyone can post a good video, or honestly, I think anyone can post a good video or have a few successful
Yeah.
hits or pieces, but to do it long term, I think you need a solid community around you. And you don't, and you
Yeah.
get there a lot faster when you have people who understand your content world. I
Mhm.
think to apply that to younger Sam, and my own advice is I would have made creative friends quicker. I love my close friends. Most of them are not in content world, and that is completely fine. Probably better for their sanity. I think though, on the flip side, what we were talking about is that it's still taking me time to find kindred spirits on
Yeah.
podcasting or content or people in my position. And I think there's just a level at this point where if you are not vaguely aware of my content and we are not already close friends because of another reason, it's
Yeah.
probably going to be hard. It's probably going to be like sorry, I think think my computer keeps sleeping. I keep forgetting about that. But I think that's what I would have done differently. Where I
Mm.
mean, I was really lucky in college to have pretty close friends by the time I started the podcast, but
Yeah.
I would have pushed myself to join like a creative club or go to more shows on campus and just see what people were doing and at least get inspired by proximity because I think no one tells you in college like be more creative. Maybe they do, but they do it in a way where it's a lot more like be creative for this job you're applying
Mhm.
for, like be creative for this club you're applying
Mm.
for. And I think, yeah, I would have wished I was a little more brave. I think even doing the podcast was great as a
Yeah,
start,
hell yeah.
but to do it better, I think to find those people earlier would have been helpful.
Yes. Yes, that's so real, and I think it's so funny because I feel like I'm a little bit on the opposite end of that, where I'm like,
Mm,
I feel like most of my close friends are improvisers and are
yeah.
in the creative world, and sometimes I'm like, "God, I need to hang out with other people too." And then when
Yes,
I
this has
do,
been a recurring thing.
yeah, there's, like, a value to having those kindred spirits, and then there's a value to also having that space to kinda look at what you're doing from a different angle, or, like, hang out with other kinds of creatives, so balance
Totally.
is key. Um,
Balance is
but
very
yeah,
key.
that's interesting, yeah. Um, I also wanted to ask, so for Mindful Notions, do you have, like, a favorite episode? Do you have a dream episode? Yeah.
I think one of my favorites is our first episode together. I will say that that's
Are
the
you
first
saying
time I
that
did
because I'm on this? This is sponsored. Guys, it's sponsored
yes,
by
it
me.
is completely because you're on here, and if you weren't, it'd be a completely different answer. But I think like that's the first time I did clips, which feels so part of it now. Like there's gonna be 4 clips that come out of this that will go on YouTube, but I pinned it still to this day because I really like
Wait, can you
the
make this a
quote that you
clip? If I say that, make this a clip. Make this a clip.
yes, I
Okay,
think
let's go.
it is this algorithmically based, but we'll see what happens.
Okay,
But I will if you ever need it, I'm happy to send it to you.
let's go.
I I don't know. I feel like that episode as well. Again, it's the first time we really talked in front of a camera, and it was a lot. It was like comfortable and different at the same time. And I think, again, a lot of those early episodes just felt like, oh, I can do this. I feel like that's how I feel the most about early days of the podcast, where it just felt like something I could do, and if I worked really, really hard for a long time, like slightly better than the average
Mhm.
person. That's how I felt. And then dream episode, I think it's just when I have a studio. I mean, I'm very far off from that, but I think just whenever I'm able to get a house, which again is very far off, like I want room to be the studio and to design it. Basically, my version of like the Call Daddy studio. I really like how Alex has set up the whole space with
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
the cushions and everything. Like I just want the Sam version of that because
Yeah.
what better way to like welcome people and host people than do the pod. That won't be the only way, to be clear. There'll be other ways that I can entertain guests, but I I think that would just be such a cool moment for anyone who's seen me on the pod up until that point, like to actually be in that space
Yeah.
together. And that's the dream. That honestly is the dream.
Do you
Yeah.
know what it's gonna look like?
Yeah, I have thoughts. I feel like I've seen a few studios now where I'm like, I want to do that, I want to do this, I would do that, I would do this. I feel like there shouldn't be like a big table. Like there's a current round table that me and my friends use, which I think serves its purpose, but it feels very distant from each
Yeah.
other. Like that's my thing with Good Hang with Amy Poehler. Like, they're so far apart and there's this like
Yeah.
huge table between them. And I get it. Like I'm sure a lot of thought went into that. I'm not knocking that, but for me, it needs to feel like either a half moon circle situation with like really fluffy
Yeah.
couches and a lot of fluffy surfaces. Some of my favorite books like in the background, ambient lighting, like warm, very, very warm lighting. And of course, it's the best quality mics possible. That's like the most
Yeah.
important part
Hell
to
yeah.
me.
Also,
Yeah.
let me just say, guys, Sam was like, I'm taking a breather from listening to podcasts, but then name dropped like 4 podcasts, which is more than I can ever even name drop because I feel like I only listen to NPR up first. So shout out NPR. Oh,
It's a
and
good one.
Mindful
It's a good
Notions.
one.
Sorry, and Mindful
And
Notions.
Mindful Notions. Yes, of course.
But yeah, hell yeah, I'm here for Studio Sam. I'm excited to take a nap in there.
Yeah.
Um,
You're
oh,
welcome
I also
to.
want to ask because I don't really use Substack that much, and I should. I was just there's so many platforms that you occupy, and I'm curious, like how you use them all differently, and like where Substack fits into podcasting. Just kind of how you use them, and when you pick and choose which one to use.
Yeah, Substack's been great. I definitely, over time, have used it more. I would say that Substack is great because it directly connects to the major podcast platforms of Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube, and now increasingly makes clips as well. And also, it's a newsletter, so I feel like I've actually been writing more. I would say I'm like a relatively weak writer. I don't think in a bad way. I tend to be very precise, I would say, with writing, and short, it would be another way. Like I
That's how you
never really
text
felt,
too. That's how Sam
yeah,
texts.
Donna can attest. I'm like, hey, here. And that's
There's some M
usually
dashes too, and I'm like, is it
and
Sam?
dashes. Yeah, or thanks, thanks. Like I say a lot of thanks. I
Yeah,
moved more to the hands together type of emoji as well. That's where I'm trending right now with my texting. But I think everything flows down from Substack. So it goes
mhm,
to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube with clips on YouTube as well. I'll repurpose them on Instagram. And then I found with like LinkedIn and X, it's best for in-person things. Like when I'm saying I'm hosting a pop-up, or again, I'm doing an in-person event in New York in a few weeks, that'll be in the description. If people are
mhm,
around, they should come. It's like a celebration of the nomination. That tends to do better on Twitter and LinkedIn.
mhm,
But I think honestly, I think it's when you hit the right mix of like in person and online, that is where I feel the most comfortable. And that's just changed over time. It used to be just the podcast platforms. I did a good amount of like Instagram content last year, like monetized content, and that was like a good experience to get under my belt. LinkedIn, obviously, when you're feeling more professional and you're either hiring or job searching, and then Twitter is like Wild West for real. So I think it's really based on whatever platform I feel pulled to in the moment, since I'm not actively like trying to make money from them. It's
mhm.
more about, I think every platform has its own trade-offs. And right now, like it's getting closer to summer and I'm traveling more. I want to use Instagram more just because that also has a personal touch, and I've been enjoying it. But I think again, when I'm more work mode, I would use LinkedIn more. But Substack is like the common denominator there where it does flow. And I do think
Yeah,
it is a notch above where, again, similar to the anyone who has the time and effort, like anyone can make a good Instagram post or LinkedIn post or X post, but I do think Substack has a bit more soul. Like I think you need to
mm,
have a thought. Like no one just writes a newsletter, or they can, but it's not going to do that well. Like I do think you need a little more thought in Substack, which I appreciate a lot.
yeah, yeah, hell yeah. Yeah, I do think that there's this new thing that's going on now where like I feel like a lot of people are getting on Substack where I'm now like I wish there were more people who had thoughts that were on Substack.
Yes, yes, you've talked about this. You've talked about this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah.
oversaturated where there's someone who like they'll write an entire article on the sky being blue and I'm like you didn't need not everyone needs to write, not everyone needs a space to let out their thoughts. So,
Yeah, I'm with you. I feel like but then again, it's those people who are actually consistent, who can go somewhere. But most likely, I think everyone should try something like
yeah,
Substack. But then, if it's not for you, like I think it will naturally result in you
yes.
using it less. So that's my hopefully comforting message
Yeah,
back to you. That's
because
my
I will
hypothesis, at
find
least.
I will find you bitches and I'll hate comment on you. I shouldn't say that.
Let it
I'm
be
very
known. Let it be.
I'm not a
That was
hater,
it. That was allegedly, guys. That was
allegedly.
allegedly.
Yeah, don't cancel me, please. Um,
Do you have like one or two more questions? Any last burning ones in your mind?
um, Yeah, okay. One that I have is if you could, you kind of touched on this with writing, but if you could do another medium of content, what would you do outside of podcasting?
I've always admired stand-ups. Like that's why I took us to that stand-up show when I was in SF. I feel like it's so much harder than it looks. I think
Mhm.
especially when we were talking about the crowd work, I didn't even think about that because I think most people, including me, look at a stand-up and with any like speaking experience, they're like, oh, I could do that. Like you just go up and I mean it's like extemporaneous speaking, like which we
Yeah,
both
yeah.
are familiar with. But then when we, even when we were talking about the Uber actors, I was like, oh, like it takes time to
Yeah.
hone in on the jokes. And then especially the crowd work, like you don't know what crowd you're going into, especially we went to like a tech AI stand-up. So it was
Yeah.
a certain crowd for sure. I mean, some people were loving it. The guy next to me was like laughing a lot. And I was like,
Yeah.
great. I'm glad you're feeling it. But definitely some were like hit or miss for me. And I think that's the average experience as well. You're very stone faced. Like you could be having a great time and you're like, I'd be nervous to do stand up in front of
I
you.
can't watch I feel like I can't watch stand-up or improv and enjoy it anymore because 'cause I'm just, like, thinking about
You're
it.
judging it.
I am
Yeah.
judging it, and stand-up
Yeah.
specifically, I have a hard time watching people trying to be funny because I just can't engage with them. I saw a stand-up show yesterday, actually,
No, nice.
and there was one of them made me genuinely laugh because
Oh, good.
he said he was like, "This isn't even part of a bit, like, this is just my thoughts," and that got me because then he just started talking, and I
Mm,
was like, "This is awesome." So,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Okay, noted. So I would say stand up. I feel like I've always felt an admiration, also just an affinity. I'm not saying I'm there, but I feel like it would feel like a pretty natural evolution, but still risky. Like it would still feel
Would
like,
you
oh,
do
this
it?
is different.
Like, would you try it?
Yeah, yeah, I would always try something. I feel like, as Dua Lipa said in her Vogue 73 Questions,
Bro,
"When's the last time you tried something for the first time?" I That stuck with me. It's that and Kendall Jenner saying, "Sometimes you have to break down to break through." Those
mm,
2 things.
those 2
Oh,
things.
that's my Roman Empire every day. I think about those 2 things. So,
Okay,
yeah, in the spirit of that, I would try it. Yeah, so
wow.
we'll have to see.
I
Yeah.
gotta start saying as Dua Lipa said before to preempt
You
myself,
have to. You
as
have
Dua
to.
Lipa said. Literally. As Dua Lipa said, Mindful Notions should win the award. Um,
Yes, verbatim.
okay, I think that okay, let's see. We gotta end on if we're gonna end, if this is my last question, I gotta think of something that will be super powerful.
Blow the audience away, blow their
Um,
minds.
okay. I asked all my closing questions early. Like, why did I do that? I think I mean, I guess okay, I guess the most natural ending is the future. So,
Yes.
as Dua Lipa said. So I guess if you yeah, tell us your future for podcasting, your future for stand up, what's next for Mindful Notions or and just for you in general for Sam Lee.
Yeah. Well, Sam Lee is very content and grateful to have the life he has in New York and for the people he has everywhere. I think that I'm just trying to learn as much as possible in everything I do. Like this is the first time this is such a casual campaign, but the first time I like had to campaign for an award and think about it in this way, or even at work, like I learned so much doing community at Notion with
Yeah.
how to lead communities both online and in person. I feel like I would love to just keep learning how to make great things. Like I was telling someone that at work today, I think that's the end goal. And I think I'm lucky where great things mean very that have very different metrics depending on like
Yeah.
what context I'm talking about right now. And I'm super fortunate to be in a time where I feel like I've just bought myself a lot of time.
Yeah.
I mean, life changes so fast. I could be saying that now and tomorrow feel differently, but I think for the past 2 years, it's been a bit more liminal. And right now, a lot of change is still happening, but I'm in New York for the foreseeable future. I'm really happy at my job, and I hope that it will be a great fit for a long time on both sides. I love like Mindful Notions, like I said, I think will outlive anything else that I do. And my friendships are hitting like 10-year marks, like me and you, which is insane. And it's I don't I think hopefully we go to each other's like, you know, weddings and everything. Like I think I'm thinking about things in a lot more long term these days, and
Let it be
I,
known that Sam is not coming to my birthday party. So
yeah, actually,
yeah,
that
we
one I
ended
will not
up
be attending.
we will
We
10 years and that's it. Friendship done.
yeah, we'll have to end it after this, unfortunately. But I I think to answer that, it's more just I'm trying to learn as much as I can. I never felt super comfortable learning in the classroom, honestly. I always
Yeah.
felt like there was a wrong answer, which there are, like to be clear, there are wrong answers, but it always felt like a test that I was not great at and I
Mm,
was like good enough at. But now I feel like I'm getting all the things I did learn in school, which I'm really grateful for all of my schooling. Like I love learning right now. I love learning how to be a better community manager. I love learning more about content. Podcasting is like one of the best ways of learning.
mhm.
I and I just I think that's the headspace I'm in right now. Like I just want to learn better than the average person. Because there's so much for me to learn. So
Yeah.
that's how I'm feeling. Yeah.
Hell yeah. Wow, that was beautiful. That's better than anything
Thanks.
Dua Lipa has said. God.
One day when I meet Dua Lipa, I'll be like, hey, so like just so you know, that podcast you definitely listened to all those years ago, not personal. And
Not personal.
she'll just smile and nod. She'll just smile and nod. Thanks, Dalia, so much for doing this. I really appreciate you making the time. And you've seen me through so many content iterations and have always like consistently, I would say, supported me. So I really appreciate it. I'm also glad this was your first podcast
Yeah,
questioning, interviewing, all of the above.
it was awesome.
I'm always happy to hear that. And this is Mindful Notions. We help young people do more with less. You can find us on Substack, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. If you're listening on Substack, please consider recommending us. It really helps us reach new listeners and people who might be interested. The podcast where we're up for the voting will close May 4th. So I will put the link in the description. We're doing an in-person New York event in a few weeks. If you're around, please come to celebrate. There'll be coffee, pastries, and a live podcast as well with some of the people I mentioned earlier. So I will include that link as well. And until next time, which should be within a week, we'll have more updates with me, Megan, Hill, and Austin. But until then, thank you again, Dania. I hope everything is well in SF, one of my favorite cities out there. I'm sure the
Oh,
weather
yeah.
is better there right now. And appreciate you again. Appreciate anyone who's listening to this podcast. And let's see what happens next for it. Thanks, guys. Bye.